Views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because it's time for Joanne's World of Nutrition, presented by Joanne's Nutrition World, across from City Hall, US 1 at Orange Avenue in Fort Pierce. And now, here's your host, Joanne Seeger.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope everyone's having an absolutely incredible morning. I am really excited about today's show. I have a good customer that had some issues with her pelvic floor. And so I was seeking out someone. So I mentioned to, of course, Dr. Ravi, if he knew of anyone. And he recommended a friend of his and, someone that they basically have patients go back and forth, Erica. And Erica sent me this gem. So this is Becca Ironside, and she is, and correct me if I get any of your bio wrong, a physical therapist and specializes in the pelvic floor. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Becca, to the show. I am so absolutely excited to have you here today. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. And I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we can be sort of the town crier to help everybody in the local region with their pelvises.
Love it. Love it. And one thing I love about, the internet now is that people can hear this message from all over the world. Once it goes onto YouTube, everyone can kind of check it out. So this episode is going to be the first of two. This is going to be about the female anatomy in the pelvic floor. And then in 2 weeks, we were going to have Becca back and do the male anatomy. Correct, Becca?
Yes.
Awesome. But we first must start with our breath work. Cliff, you can get the breath work going for us this morning, because I think we all really need to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
So Becca, this is how it works, and welcome any newbies to the show. We're going to exhale out any stress, nervous tension, anything that doesn't feel comfortable in our bodies. We're going to inhale only using our nose for 5, hold for 5, and exhale for 5. And we're only going to do this 2 times this morning, just because I want to get right to the topic.
That'll only take 30 seconds.
There you go. All right,
Half a
everyone,
minute.
exhale.
Let it all out. And now begin your intake through your nostrils. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Becca, doesn't that feel wonderful?
I feel better already.
I know, nothing better than breath work. Well, our friend and so Marlene, have you gotten to meet my customer and friend Marlene yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Is she not like amazing and spectacular as a human?
She is, and she made a specialty pillow spray that she's dispensing all over town.
I know. She's like the most beautiful, beautiful individual. Every time she comes, she's like, oh, I made you this spray for this, or this roll on for this, and so much positive energy. Well, she absolutely loves you and Erica and what you have shown her there. And she's told me some of the methods, and I got to tell you, my mind is blown. I am used to physical therapy in the definition of you go to a machine or you go to a pool and you have to move your body, and people complain it hurts so much they don't even want to go. And that is not what she's experiencing with you guys. It's like she's talking about breath and standing in front of a mirror and learning how to like just hold muscles and release muscles. So you are going to have to start at the very beginning of this whole one-on-one with myself and my audience, because I am a total newbie to the pelvic floor. And so can you just pretend like we all know nothing and just start us?
Certainly, certainly. So when you're sitting down, there are muscles that are in the saddle region of your body. So if you were sitting on the saddle of a horse, those very muscles would be in contact with the saddle. And these muscles are your pelvic floor muscles. Now, you likely never think about them, but they're doing a very important job. They're holding up all of your organs, and their job is to maintain continence and to, again, hold up everything inside of your body until it's time for these said muscles to open. So these muscles, these saddle muscles, they will open up for 3 activities. They'll open up when you pee, they'll open up when you have a bowel movement, and they'll open up for reproduction or sex. So if there's any disruption to the muscles, either they're too weak or they're too tight, which is more often the case. We treat people with a lot of tension in this region. The more likely it is that a person will have an interrupted urinary stream, urinary leakage, constipation, difficult diarrhea, bowel movements, but also difficulties tolerating sexual activity. So again, these pelvic floor muscles are responsible for urination, defecation, reproduction. And again, you likely never think about them until something goes wrong.
Exactly. And those sound like pretty big, important things. And yes, we just take them for granted. I definitely did. And so I forgot to mention when I introduced you, how many years have you been doing physical therapy for the pelvic floor?
7 years now.
7 years. That's a long time. And I heard rumors that when you're dealing with pelvic floor muscles, that you really have to get in there and work that area, right?
Yes. Some of what we do for women involves getting into the vagina with a finger just to feel what the muscles are doing. It actually gives us a very good snapshot of what the person is dealing with. So we can do an examination without an internal, but we access so much more information about the individual by doing so.
Now, many of my customers come in and they complain of like their hips being really tight, or they feel cramping like they did when they were younger and they were menstruating, but they're years beyond menopause and they're feeling that tight, crampy feeling. Would pelvic floor specialists like yourself be involved in that discussion?
Yes, very much so. In fact, there's a lot of muscles of your hip joints that attach within the pelvis. So we often treat people with hip pain, and one of the drivers of hip pain can be tension within the pelvis. So these are muscles that we can't exactly access by touching patients on the outside. And patients get a ton of relief when they do allow us to sort of get in there and do some muscular releases for tension.
Right now, you mentioned urinary streams, and I have heard like one customer said to me, well, Joanne, are you tilting? I didn't know. My father-in-law is a urologist, and I never even heard of this. Like, what do you mean? Am I tilting? Oh, to make sure your urinary stream is full and that you empty the bladder completely so it doesn't back up to the kidneys. And so I tried it, and sure enough, more came out. And then I was like, whoa, what is happening here? So can you kind of talk about like what might happen? Like, and I know there's a lot of different reasons, but for like prolapses or not emptying your bladder and how the pelvic floor ties into that.
Yes. So not emptying the bladder is actually one of the biggest drivers of urinary leakage. So this is the sort of person that goes to pee, they pull their pants up, and 15 minutes later, they're leaking urine. And they say, why did this happen? It happened because you never fully emptied your bladder, right? And so a nice way to do that would be to sit on the toilet, rock your pelvis back and forth to ensure that everything is indeed out of the bladder to prevent that leakage later on. So that's a nice way to open up the pelvic floor muscles. Remember, they need to open up to pee. If they're only partially opening, you're retaining urine. And it's either going to come out or it's going to do, Joanne, what you said, back up into the kidneys, and you're going to retain urine and possibly get urinary tract infections.
Which right now I have so many customers getting UTIs. And I definitely feel like the time spent urinating is getting less and less. We're rushing, and like you said, tight. Until I watched a couple of your videos on YouTube, I thought I was relaxing, but the way you talk about breath work and relaxing all those muscles, I am totally not doing it. My whole backside, you could feel how tight it was. And so I know we're on air and we're not with your beautiful little pelvic floor model thing, but is there anything that my listeners can kind of comprehend just with you explaining how to relax and take the time to use the restroom properly?
Yes. So we definitely recommend sitting on the toilet. Some people hover over toilets when they're in public places. That's a surefire way to make sure that your bladder will not completely empty. It can't, because your butt muscles, your glutes, they're clenching too hard to keep you in that squatted position. So definitely sit down, rock your pelvis, and stay there for at least 60 seconds. So we call this double voiding. So it's just what you said, Joanne. You're going to pee once, you're going to rock your pelvis and stay. And what you'll realize is there's more urine.
Becca, what do you mean by rock? Like give me like an example. Like, am I moving my whole body as I rock, or am I trying to like how would I rock?
Oh, this is a tough one. Okay. So
Sorry.
no,
I'm just
it's
trying to
okay.
visualize, like, if you mean just like kind of rock the from the hips forward and back.
Yes.
Okay.
You're rocking.
All right.
Yep.
So like when I used to do like the aerobics in the 80s, like the Jane Fonda style, right?
Yes,
Okay.
certainly. That's
All right. I'm
perfect.
totally dating myself, but okay. That sounds good. And so the thing that about what girls say about standing and tilting, is that not good then?
So you're saying standing up?
Yeah. So like you stand over and you literally lean forward to tilt the bladder. Again, this is from a customer. It's not an expert, so feel free to tell me it's not good.
So standing to pee is never ideal. And we'll talk about that in 2 weeks for the men. I even encourage men to sit down for peeing because they're not emptying.
Oh,
They're
my husband does.
good.
He sits down.
Good.
Maybe
That's
the
the way
son
to
of a
do it.
urologist. Maybe that's why. Okay. All right. Good to know. So no standing anymore.
Mhm.
60 seconds. A good practice might be is maybe they count 60 backwards. That way they kind of relax and stop worrying about time or something, just a little counting meditation.
You know, I like that because I'm from the tri-state area and everything we do is go, go, go. So counting up to 60 is a race. Counting down from 60 is
Yeah.
relaxation.
And sometimes it takes effort to relax and think of what the next number is.
Yes, you're
All
right.
right, wonderful. Well, it's kind of, Florida is basically an influx of people from all over. So I think we're still as crazy. We're still running around, and sometimes it's not being mindful about your beautiful pelvic floor. All right. So what about we mentioned urinary constipation. It's huge. And sometimes people are just focused on a lot of my products that are just laxative type or fiber type, and they just want to push it all out. But can you give some tips on why maybe dealing with the pelvic floor might be a better solution?
Yes. So again, it's what you said. This whole globe, I think, is suffering from constipation. So if you can imagine a dog who's scared, the doggy will have its tail tucked underneath it. And that is exactly what happens to humans during times of war, crisis, famine. And if you look at this pandemic, it is really up to the anxiety for pretty much everyone. So, in order to have a good bowel movement, your tailbone actually needs to come out towards the back of you. So there's a little nodding motion that happens there. And again, if the doggy's scared, the dog's not going to lift its tail to allow the feces to come out. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of anxiety driven constipation. And also, the longer you are constipated, the tighter the pelvic floor muscles can become. And now you're really precluding a good bowel movement. So, one of the keys with that is basically opening up the region. So, getting rid of the tension in the butt cheeks and then working to really open up the hips to allow the stool to come out naturally.
Okay. So is there like so say you are like really tight and you're not doing exercises outside of the restroom, is there a way like you can say massage like the bowels, or like should you do breath work? How, if once you're in the area and you're really trying to do the right thing in the restroom, is there tricks? Like I tell everyone to use the Squatty Potty. Am I giving good advice, or is Squatty Potty not good for the pelvic floor?
It's the best thing ever invented.
Oh my God, I am so glad because I've been preaching squatty potties for everyone. They're super inexpensive. They're easy to clean. They don't look too intrusive in the bathroom, and it makes my life so much better. So good. Thank you for giving that a thumbs up. I was a little nervous.
No, and honestly, I got in this discussion last night because my in-laws are at the age where they need a higher toilet seat, which is great for safety, but it's not great for mechanics of defecation. So we need lower toilets. But as the years go by, they're manufacturing toilets higher and higher and higher. So a good way to remedy that is to buy a squatty potty.
Okay. And for anyone that doesn't know what a squatty potty is, it's just like this plastic device that hugs the base of your toilet, but you rest your feet up on it. And if I'm correct, Becca, you put your chest forward, and that will make your colon be more ready to evacuate. And I tell most people that sometimes it's twice the amount of evacuation than without it. It's incredible how it works. Okay, so it's because our toilets are so high. That's why there's the need of the squatty potty.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, you're right, because they are getting, when I went to Europe, they were so much lower there.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so we're just basically not working with our bodies, we're working against them. All right, and then I'm just trying to think of, before we go to our half-hour break, the most important questions that my customers asked me to ask you. So we talked about tilting. So rather just sit, relax, take 60 seconds. Okay. And then with bowel, use the squatty potty. So yay, I got a good one on that. And then you have to relax the butt muscles. Okay. So what would you say that the most female clients that come in to work with physical therapists, what is their number one complaint? Like, why would they like make that initial phone call for a pelvic floor specialist?
It depends. So women in their 20s and 30s, they often can come for chronic urinary tract infections, pain with intercourse, constipation. Let's say women who are pregnant are getting pregnancy related discomfort, pain. Then after the baby, they need a tune-up. So their abdominal walls are very, very weak and their pelvic floors are, let's say, discoordinated. So they'll come to us too. Then there's women going through perimenopause like myself, or menopause, where there's all kinds of changes that are happening to the pelvic floor.
Oh yeah, I totally relate. Oh my gosh. Yep.
Right. And so a nice way to handle that is to come when you start to notice them. So if you are of that age group, perimenopause, menopause, and something just doesn't feel right, it's a great time to come. Moreover, it's never too late. So if you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and you have urinary leakage, you have bowel concerns, and you might even have some discomfort and you want to have sex, you can certainly come to us for that too.
Now, some of the females that say that sex is very uncomfortable, even to the point of painful, and it might be a long time for them. Is there like they sometimes I've heard that they're nervous about going to physical therapy because they think that's going to be painful too. Is there a way that you can describe maybe like the system that's in place where it is not painful, or is it a little painful in the beginning? Because sometimes they're scared and
Oh, yeah.
they don't want to go in because they don't want pain where they've just pretty much keeping everything away from that area.
Yes.
So,
yes, we often see this, and there's a lot of fear associated with that. So, for this type of client, what we find, and the studies are showing that 50% of women after menopause are going to have pain with intercourse, and that's because there's no estrogen in the system anymore. So the vulvas themselves are not plumped anymore. So the vagina is atrophied, and there's lots of pain associated with sexual intercourse. So that's 50% of women. That's a ton of women.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what we would suggest is you can come to pelvic floor physical therapy. We definitely start slow. We're going to work on the abdominal wall first. We'd work on the inner thighs. We'd work on those butt cheeks, loosening up. And some of these women, they can tolerate internal work. Some of them opt out of that, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But there's other tricks that we can help with in terms of something called dilators we use, which are basically, they look like candles, if you will. And you use them. They're of various sizes. Some are very narrow and some are very thick. And you can put them inside the vagina and stretch the walls with them yourself. So the physical therapist can do it first within your pain and your comfort level. And then they can send you home. You can buy the dilators and you can stretch your own pelvic floor to give you some freedom back and some mobility down there.
Oh, that sounds, yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. I mean, it sounds workable, doable. And I'll tell you, I was so impressed in a couple of your videos where when you were mentioning like stretching, let me see if I had the right perineum, using coconut oil. So I have told all my clients, so now I'm postmenopausal, and I recommend doing the MCT oil or the coconut oil, all over. Like even if you're trying to just walk and it's painful because of the dryness, or the vaginal area, you don't want to have sex because of the dryness. And Marlene actually made me a spray bottle for the MCT oil, so it's been very handy. So I definitely want to shout out for MCT oil and coconut oil, that those are a great tip to make that time more pleasant. And it's anti-yeast, antifungal, antimicrobial. So it's like a win-win, moisture and fighting all the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
oh my gosh. Well, we're going to take the 10:30 break. And when we come back, we have more with Becca Ironside and talking about the pelvic floor. And remember, if you have questions, call us at 340-1590. I know I've never talked about this topic before, so I have a lot of questions, but they're all getting jumbled in my mind. So if you have a question, please give us a holler and we'll get Becca right on it. All right, we'll be right back, everybody. Hi, this is Joanne from Nutrition World and Wellness Center. I am really excited to introduce new guests and topics to my show every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. here on WPSL, where my listeners can call in on any topic. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to find it. We want to help you become the best version of yourself. We will have chiropractors, naturopaths, coaches, and of course, Dr. Ravi will be on every month as usual. I am looking forward to sharing my 30 years of experience with my listeners so we can enjoy this life journey together.
Visit Joann's Nutrition World in the Crass Square, formerly known as the Arcade Building, located at US 1 and Orange Avenue, across from Port Pierce City Hall. Open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4, Saturdays 10 to 3. Taking appointments for the Wellness Center online at joannsnutritionworld.com or call 772-464-3598.
Hey, it's Dr. Ravi at Tradition Family Chiropractic. We are dedicated to serving you and your family with integrity, compassion, and innovative care through the most advanced chiropractic care ever in chiropractic history, encouraging your health and your family's health to its maximum potential on a regular basis. Call us today at 772-345-0060 or schedule online at traditionhealth.com for your free consultation.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
And now we return you to Joanne's World of Nutrition, brought to you by Nutrition World. Once again, here's your host, Joanne Seeger.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning. I have a new friend, Becca, here with me this morning, and we're discussing the pelvic floor. She's a physical therapist with Harmony Lymph and, I always forget the rest of the name, Harmony Lymph and Pelvic Physical Therapy. She always tricks me, Erica, throwing the lymph in there, which I discuss lymph daily. So, oh my God, you put two of my new favorite things together. It's incredible. So, For anyone that wants to check out their website after the show, it is Harmony Pelvic, PELVIC PT.com. So Harmony, HARMONY, Pelvic, PT.com. This is on their website. This is some of the things they treat: urinary incontinence, chronic constipation, pelvic pain. What's that word, Becca?
Sacroiliac pain.
Sacroiliac pain. Okay, we'll go over that next. Okay, lymphedema, which I deal with all the time, swelling, post prostate surgery incontinence. Okay, what's that word?
Diastasis recti. That is the separation of the abdominal muscles after or during childbirth.
Oh,
Yeah.
I might have that
Mhm.
too. Okay, at least I'm blaming that. All right, chronic low back pain, pregnancy pain, overactive bladder, pain with penetration, hernia mesh pain, post breast cancer treatment pain, tightness. I get a lot of clients with that. All right, wow, it sounds like you guys do some serious stuff. Okay, so Becca is there with Erica, helping people just feel better in the really important stuff in life. So Becca, I know wait, first tell me what that word was, that word I couldn't
Oh,
pronounce.
sacroiliac. So that's
Yes.
basically your low back. Some people have these little dimples, right?
Yes,
the
I've
dimples of
seen
Venus.
those.
That
Yeah.
that's where your sacroiliac joints are. And
Okay.
that can cause a lot of pain. Either
Is
on
that
one
what people might
side-
call lower back pain, or is that
it's a
something
little
different?
lower than that.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
usually off to one side.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
And that's probably also a posture thing too. At least Dr. Ravi, my chiropractor friend, he would say
Oh,
how you
yeah.
hold yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So, and it's funny that you mentioned the first part of the show that some of pelvic floor issues and urinary issues come from not relaxing the muscles. Because I actually, when I started dealing with my pelvic floor issues, I kept reading that we're mostly too tight, not too loose. And I kept thinking, as I'm postmenopausal, my belly's getting a little flabbier, I'm not exercising, I'm gaining some weight. Like, oh my God, it's because I'm loose, I'm too loose. But when I started doing the exercises, I realized, wait, I might be loose in other places, but I'm tight where I need to be loose. So it's really hard as a female sometimes, Becca.
I know.
Really
And you know,
hard.
psychologically, if people start leaking urine, they're going to tense up that part of their body. 'Cause
Yes.
They think, oh, everything's falling out of me.
Exactly.
So, but the opposite is actually true. So these are the people that are going to partially empty their bladders, and they're going to develop more and more and more tension, spasms, and muscle imbalances in the pelvis.
Okay, so is this something that you actually teach? So is it where your patients go home with homework? So you do some therapy there, and then you say, okay, these are your exercises to go home with to keep it up?
Yes, precisely.
Okay. Is it have to be daily, or, is it like a 3 times a week? I'm just kind of getting an idea, when I go. So
No, it depends on the person. I find if you give people too much homework, if you give them 20 exercises, they're going to do none of them. So I like to give 2 to 3, just lifestyle techniques. So sometimes we just have people fill out a bladder diary, which is basically liquid you're drinking, what time you're drinking them, and then how many times you go to pee. So that is a really nice indicator for people. So sometimes people wait 5 hours between urinations. That's not ideal.
I was gonna say, never could I wait that long.
Right.
What can you tell me what is ideal as far as is there an equation between ounces and bladder and when you should empty it?
Well, the jury is out on in terms of adequate water consumption because nobody really knows. And I think that's more of an individual thing, but 2 to 3 hours between urinations is a really good voiding pattern. That's what we would call that. And there are people who they void too frequently. They're peeing every 30 minutes. So their bladder is never really full and it's never really empty. And they're just sort of pushing the walls of the bladder to do what they're really not ready to do. So we would look at that person's bladder diary and say, okay, we want you to set a timer for 60 minutes, then 90 minutes, then 2 hours. We want you to space your urinary intervals better so that your bladder can fill and your bladder can empty naturally.
Okay. And if they're worried about leakage in the point of therapy where they're not healed yet and they're doing the journal and they're trying to push it off, do you just have them wear a pad just in case? I mean, because I know that feeling where you think you have to go and you're nervous, you don't want to have an accident. So do you suggest like 10-minute intervals you push
Yeah.
it off?
It's
Okay.
it's a slow process, but honestly, the bladder is like a young child. It bounces back very quickly. You can retrain a bladder very readily. It's much harder to retrain a bowel. A bowel is like an old man, and he does not like change.
I love that reference. Sorry, guys, but I love it. Oh my God. Well, but that's good news about the bladder because honestly, I think females think they have more control over the other, but it's probably the different now that you're saying that. All right. So if someone came in and they had urinary incontinence, again, I'm asking the questions from the customers, so don't shoot the messenger. How long do they normally have to get physical therapy before they can retrain their bladder? Say they're just in the beginning stages of leakage where they step off, a bar stool and the urine drips down their leg, something like that.
Well, it all depends on how long they've had the issue, which is why we tell people when you start to feel symptoms, come as soon as you can. Because the longer you delay this sort of thing, the longer it'll take you in therapy. So, a good rule of thumb is we treat people 1 to 2 times a week. And you should give yourself, if this is a chronic problem, you've had it over a year, you should give yourself a good 3 months just for your own peace of mind so that you're not rushing and you're giving it the old college try. I would say around 3 months would be an average.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's definitely good. And the bowel movements with constipation, I know that, I mean, I think everyone is aware that your bowels are evacuating some of the things that are the most dangerous to the body. The body's trying very hard to get out toxic waste, anything that really doesn't belong and could do harm staying back. And most of us, there was a statistic that almost 100% of us are constipated, even before the epidemic, like where they're showing we are determined just to do one bowel movement a day, but one bowel movement a day is still considered constipated because we're supposed to be emptying our bowels, after our meals. So where do you stand with that? And like, as far as helping people with constipation, do you feel like they're open-minded like they are about urinary leakage?
Well, yes, because if you're suffering from that, you'll do pretty much anything to get help. Um, Here is something that I've recently written about. Uh, and I just want to put it out there. So basically, when you have a bowel movement, two things need to happen. The first is peristalsis, which is these wave-like contractions of they start actually in the esophagus. This food moves down and goes into the stomach, intestines. So that ushers food through the system. And that starts with chewing food. Secondly, in order to have a bowel movement, you need your parasympathetic, your calming system to be present. So remember your grandfather? He used to take the paper into the bathroom and he stayed there and he was happy. He was on to something. So what I like to tell people is we as Americans, we eat a breakfast sandwich in our car on the way to work. So that's starting the peristalsis. But the second that you arrive in your office or you log onto your computer from home is the second that your calming system is not in the building anymore. So the two things that you did to have that bowel movement are not effective. So what we do suggest is wake up a little bit earlier, choose something. Choose something and start peristalsis. A smoothie will not work for this. You need to chew something. Then be at home for when that urge kicks in so that you're calm, you're relaxed. Because you're not going to have a bowel movement at work in a stall with somebody that you hate in the next stall. You're just not. Your body's going to say no to that.
It is absolutely true. And, we have 4 kids and the same thing, like we deal with that because they start their morning, they're supposed to, do what you just said. And then as soon as they get in school, they shut that off. They totally block it out because they know, do you know most of the restrooms, at least maybe these charter schools, they don't have they have doors in the stalls, but not in the main entryway. So everyone hears everything.
Oh,
So our daughters are
yes.
like, there is no way. So when they come home, they are racing to the restroom, like almost to the upset manic point, where because they held it in. And it really upsets me, but I get it. I mean, I understand, they're having these, they don't want to have the sounds or the smells or, whatever everyone goes through. But and since we're on that topic, Becca, and I don't want to divert, but you made a video about farting. Okay. And I thought it was so awesome. And I knew once I watched that video, I was going to love you because I know that I have a lot of female customers that are like, Joanne, I just feel like I have so much gas and I can't release it. And I say to them, are you passing gas? No, no. And I think they're almost embarrassed to talk to me of that, but they believe it's just because it's something in their esophagus, something with their heart. Like they really want to blame the more serious thing. And I'm like, no, you have to pass gas. If you keep it
Mhm.
trapped, you're going to feel like this terrible, uncomfortable feeling. So maybe since we're talking about constipation and bowels, you can lead us into the gas after that, that conversation.
Oh,
Sound good?
yes,
I
for
didn't want to forget
sure.
about that.
Sure.
Farting is important, people, but just don't do it in my store. No, just kidding. Anytime you want. We have lots of essential oils in our diffusers.
Or small enclosed studios.
Yeah, right.
Do you know the reason we made the farting video is because there was a client who was like a Wall Street guy and
Oh my
he could
gosh.
not fart. He would go to the office and scream at these numbers and he was stressed to the max. And he came home with so much abdominal pain. It was excruciating. Furthermore, he couldn't tolerate hands-on care. His muscle tension was just too great and his nervous system was on overdrive. So my good friend Marjana, who's in that video, she devised a farting program for him. And I walked into the gym and I'm like, what's going on? And they tell me, and I said, we've got to make a video about this because you cannot be the only person on the planet who's suffering. And sure enough, he wasn't. There's tons of people who can't
Right.
fart. Yeah.
Yeah. I got certified as a yoga teacher in another life. And same thing, what you guys mentioned in the beginning of the video, that a lot of times in yoga class that you pass gas and it was totally normal and it felt really good. You really, that distension that you're blaming lunch on or thing, it's gone immediately and you feel so much better. So I love that. So you can look for, her name is so easy to remember, Becca Ironside on YouTube, PT, and she has a lot of great videos. Super sweet, by the way, Becca. You just have such a great air about you. So, all right. So go back to constipation, the parasympathetic system, because that's the language I speak every day about toning the vagus nerve, relaxing the parasympathetic system for pretty much all bodily functions and to make our body work well. So again, some people don't understand how the mind and the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system affects bowels. So you want to emphasize that again? I'm sure
Yes.
everyone needs to hear it again.
I had this fantastic patient up north, a man. He was a retired social worker, 70 years old, knew all about the nervous system. And he walks through the door and tells me he's severely constipated and retains urine. And he says, I'm here to tell you, I don't have a parasympathetic system.
He was sure of it.
Oh my goodness gracious. And so he had a childhood. He was raised by a man who had lived through World War II. And it was a hard upbringing. And so that stayed with him. And so these are things that we all need to consider when we're looking at our voiding habits, is how much stress and trauma are you personally carrying? Because a lot of that is stored in the pelvis and will impact elimination of the body. You're holding on to things. And so we definitely encourage people to come, and even if you don't want a heck of a lot of help, but you want to be able to talk freely and you don't want as much hands-on, that's great too. That helps a lot of people, just talking about these issues.
Now, where do you stand on breath work? What's your favorite breath work exercises? Is there something on YouTube people can look up? Or I know that you guys always talk about online belly breaths. Is that correct?
Yes.
Like, do you do what I do with the nose, or do you use the mouth? How do you do it?
I unfortunately am terrible at deep breathing. So
Well, thank you for your honesty.
yes,
Okay.
it's dreadful. And I was speaking with my friend last night and she says, I said, my anxiety is so high. And she says, anxiety hates deep breathing.
That's right. That's what I tell everyone. Another trick, Becca, I use for my clients is when they're feeling anxiety, which I used to suffer with, about 7 years ago after a divorce, is to look in the mirror and you smile ear to ear, even if you feel anxious, horrible, like defeated, it doesn't matter. You just force yourself to smile. You look in that mirror and you do that breath work through your nose, forming a box. They call it the box method, but I did it before I even knew it was called that, where you're just picturing, or any object, you just count along the sides of the wall of the object. So 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out for 4, and you just keep doing it while you're smiling in the mirror, and it absolutely works. No one has told me it can't work, because when you smile, you basically relax and tone that vagus nerve and help that parasympathetic system function properly. So
I'm
it's
going
a
to try
good trick.
that. I'm going to try
Yeah,
that this
because
afternoon.
we do the breath work at, well, not every morning. We used to, my husband and I, and he's like a pro breather. Like, it's just like he should make the videos. And I just look at him and it becomes a little competitive at times. I'm like, really, dude? Like, he literally can have a whole conversation with me holding his breath. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm literally
my
in
gosh.
full concentration mode trying to count to like 60. And he's just like, oh, while holding his breath. And yeah, so that's a whole other story. But so you're not alone. I really struggle with breath work, but I have to be intentional about it. But that trick with anxiety in the mirror, oh my God, it's such a blessing. Definitely try that. Okay.
I will.
So it's so good that you're human, and because you're so beautiful and yes, and so cute and healthy looking. So I'm glad you're human like all of us.
It's
All right.
funny. I was in my 30s and I developed severe depression, severe to the point I was crying all weekend long.
Oh, I'm so sorry, honey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I sought help. I was working in a nursing home and there was a lot of death around me of people that I loved. I loved
Oh,
these people. And so I went to several doctors and I said, "Can you give me antidepressants?" And they said, "Well, we could, but you've got to quit that job."
wow.
And
At least they were honest about it.
I
That's good.
know. And
Yeah.
that's what I look for in physicians. People who are going to call you out on the stuff that's going wrong in your life, because we all have
Yep.
something that we're all doing something that is against our best interests. And in learning about the pelvis, I learned exactly what was driving my poor interests, what I was doing wrong.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, life does teach us all the lessons if we're ready to hear it, right?
Yeah.
So you just gotta
Yeah.
have to be receptive and open-minded. And so now back to the bowels. There are some people that it hurts to have a bowel movement. So they get to the point where they're in the restroom, and I've heard some crazy stories, especially with anal the prolapse.
Yeah.
So they have possibly a uterine prolapse, a
Mhm.
bladder prolapse, anal prolapse, and I know there's fancy names for all that, but and so it's painful
Mhm.
to actually have a bowel movement. What's some suggestions that you might have for that?
It's tough because that pain with the bowel movements can often be driven by muscle tension in that region. And so some patients respond very readily. I know it sounds crazy, to release of the very muscles of the rectum, because these muscles are not opening up enough in many cases for a proper bowel movement to take place. So some people have very tight tailbones. They've fallen on their butt a lot, or they just have tailbone sitting pain, and this is going to preclude normal bowel movements. Furthermore, from the brain point of view, if you have pain with an activity, the brain wants to protect you from it. So if you have pain with bowel movements, you're going to stop having them because your brain is
That's
so
true.
clever. It's going to say,
Yep.
I'm not doing that to you. And so that's going to worsen the cycle of constipation. and pain and muscle spasms. So definitely pelvic floor physical therapy for that is a biggie.
Okay. And there was the one video I watched. So I really suggest, because this is hard for Becca to describe, obviously just vocalizing, but her videos, she does show hands-on. The one model about this subject was where they laid on their side with a pillow between their legs, and they showed you showed how they could relax the buttocks area
Mhm.
and that whole anal area. And that was really helpful. And that's something someone can do themselves, just give themselves that time. And that's the thing I think that the biggest takeaway Becca's talking about is give yourself the time to relax these muscles. And because hemorrhoids and hernias, all these things can be a result of,
Mhm.
just acting fast and maybe not properly, right? And you don't want to end up with the hemorrhoids. And do you guys deal with that too? I'm just curious.
We see people who've had hemorrhoid surgeries. So what that tells us is they do have tight pelvic floor muscles. If you needed banding for hemorrhoids, you're not having regular bowel movements. You're doing something wrong. And I don't want to blame people for doing something wrong. We all do wrong things, but it could be prevented in terms of the proper mechanics of defecation, which is squatty potty, relaxation, drinking enough water. All of this can help.
Gotcha. And I think too, I just that MCT oil that I mentioned for making intercourse less painful. You can also do that on the backside as well too. Just because some people feel like if they do have a hemorrhoid or they do have some type of I'm making up words here, stricture, things like, that you feel like why your bowels can't come out. If you spray that MCT oil, kind of makes for a slickier
Yep.
exit way, and so that's another suggestion too. That spray bottle can come in very handy in the restroom. So
I love it. It's almost like that perineal wash that women do after pregnancy.
yes, my daughter-in-law is
Yeah.
about to give birth any day now. We're
Yeah.
doing a home birth and we have our home birth kit, right there. And sure enough, it came with that wash bottle.
Yes.
So very, very handy. Yes. So
Is she doing labial glides?
So Shelby, if you're listening, Becca just said a weird word. A what? What is it called? I
Okay.
did a home birth and I don't know this. What is this one?
No, it's new. I mean,
Oh,
by
please tell us.
new,
Okay.
it's more and more popular for women. So at around the 34 to 36 week of
Yeah,
pregnancy.
she's 39 as of yesterday.
Okay, so it's not too late. You can basically take your finger and you're going to go right inside the labia and you're going to just gently stretch the tissues out. So this is helpful in trying to prevent tearing during
With
child-
MCT oil or coconut oil?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what they use.
Oh my gosh. So you're just
Yeah.
gently stretching it so you don't
Yep.
tear.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that makes perfect sense. Now, she is watching all these YouTube girls that are really dynamic and awesome. But I really don't think any of them mentioned that. They talked about just general lubrication,
Mhm.
but not specifically that. So I will bring it up at home. Yeah, I took yesterday off just thinking maybe she can go into labor while
Oh.
I'm home from work. No such luck, but we got everything super clean. All right. So great. So we have 4 minutes left. I'm trying to think, Becca. I know we're going to do males in 2 weeks, but with the female prolapses, pessaries come into play usually when physical therapy didn't achieve 100% results for prolapses.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there a timeline? And I'm asking for a friend, haha. Is how much time would you give to physical therapy before you decided that the pessary might be a good option?
It depends on the let's say they have a grading system for prolapses, 1
Yeah,
through 4.
just say it's like a 1.5.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 1 and 2, those prolapses, physical therapy can help. 3 and 4, not as effective. So I like pessaries. For those of you who don't know, they're basically a space holding device that you put inside the vagina. It holds up the other surrounding organs, right? So a lot of people find them unsexy and weird, but I worked very closely with a urogynecologist up north. And I don't know, I saw her put some pessaries in people, and I thought, this is a really nice alternative to surgery. And
Okay, love that. Oh, we have a caller, line 1. We definitely have to take this caller. So I'm going to tell you what she says, Becca. No worries.
okay.
All right. All right. So we have Marlene on line 1. Do we have her in action yet, Cliff? Marlene, are you there, honey? Hello. Hello, beautiful. Good morning. Hi, honey. Did you have a question? Oh. It's never too late, Marlene, and you're doing so good. So what I'm going to do is spend the next 2 minutes telling everyone where to call and how to look them up. So thank you again for turning me on. All right.
Thanks,
Bye, honey.
Marlene.
Bye. All right. So Becca Ironside, again, you can find her videos on YouTube. She really demonstrates really well on how to work thing. And that was from her life in New Jersey. And I'm so glad she found her way to our little treasure coast here in Florida. But it is Harmony Lymph and Pelvic Floor. And the phone number here is 772-342-4490. Again, 772-342-4490, and their website, harmonypelvicpt.com. Becca Ironside, you are such a blessing. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'll see you in 2 weeks to discuss the men's stuff. Oh
Thank
boy,
you.
that's going to be weird. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Bye.
You've been listening to Joanne's World of Nutrition, presented each week by Nutrition World in downtown Fort Pierce, across from City Hall, US 1 at Orange Avenue, and formerly known as the historic arcade building, now known as the Crass Square. You can meet Joanne over there shortly after the show because she's going to be heading on over there now. By the way, this is WPSL, Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world on Google Home, Alexa, and of course the TuneIn app on your smartphone. It's 11 o'clock right now.